keep wondering why Raheem and Terry were not doing their spiel together, as that has been a Falcon way for a while, because they always want to tell us how collaborative they are. This goes back to the days of Mike Smith and Thomas Dimitroff. This goes back to the days of Thomas and DQ. This goes back to the Terry and Arthur Smith, and now Terry and Raheem Morris. Well, Raheem addressed the media yesterday, and I picked this specific cut for one reason. And let me give some credit to Derek Thomas. Another one of these guys around here busted, does so many things and does them at a high level. And DT's job was to sift through the Raheem Morris press conference to find something that made some semblance of sense.
It was dope. I saw it.
Wow. So anywho, Raheem yesterday started by talking about Terry Fontenot. And he was asked if he thinks Terry will be back. Take a listen.
I would like to hope so. For me and Terry, this thing's just getting started. And, I love working with him. I love being with him. Obviously, I don't do contracts, but, Terry and I have a great working relationship in what we're doing. We're moving forward together right now in this process. We'll be together in this process. We'll be together over the next couple of weeks talking to our players, really setting expectations for where we want to be and some of those different things as we get a chance to connect with our whole team. Everything that we're going to do together, and we'll be right next to each other.
So he said together 4 times right next to each other except for this press conference. That's literally the funniest part of what I just heard. We do everything together. I scratch his back. He scratches mine. We go get meals together. We're here late nights. We do everything together. Raheem, follow-up. Why isn't Terry with you right now? Because I thought we collaborate on all this stuff. That one, again, maybe I'm reaching. Maybe I'm looking into something that's not there. It's just odd to me.
You're still paying attention to what Raheem says. I guess we kind of have to because I'm in the media, and so I still listen to it, but I've stopped trying to figure it out. I understand what it is. I've said mid-season, I'm stopped trying to figure out what Kyle is. I know what Kyle is. He's a tall guy, running real fast. That's all we're ever going to get from him. You're still listening to Raheem and trying to figure out how he can have such a big hole in his logic.
It's not true. I told you I speak Raheem. You don't. I could teach a class on speaking Raheem. My only point right there was he doesn't know if Terry's back or not. At the beginning of his answer right there, he's like, I hope he's, back. We're just getting started. I don't do contracts. I thought Raheem did contracts. He's telling you that I'm going to bat for my guy. Now, Raheem wouldn't say anything else. It would be hilarious if Raheem in that presser was like, I have doubts about Terry too. You see his draft picks? That would be funny. So he's telling you together. You're not together right now at a time when every other coach and GM have been doing their pressers in the Falcons' history over the past decade plus. That's what's interesting to me.
But again, don't tell me trying to find the logic in this, whereas I'm saying I already know what the logic is. The logic is Terry's done a bad job as GM and shouldn't be back, regardless of what Raheem says or doesn't, regardless of whatever timeline they have him scheduled for or they don't. The one part that jumped out to me of that entire quote was he said, "Now, obviously, I don't do contracts," which in parenthesis says, I didn't sign Kirk Cousins. But beyond that...
Don't you laugh at the funny of that? We do everything together. He's not with
Everything that we're going to do together. And we'll be right next to each other.
It should be.
Right next to each other.
Yeah, it should be.
He's not there. It's funny.
Raheem and the Falcons.
I know. You're not getting the funny of it. All right, here is more Raheem on turning the page in 2025, and he explains who the brain trust is that will be making these key decisions.
Obviously, disappointed for our organization, for us, for our fan base, for all of us, but the work has to start today. 2025 starts today for us, and the process has already begun. Obviously, the things that we have to do, myself, Terry, Greg Beatles, all of us involved, getting together and figuring out how to be where we want to be and finding a way to get there.
So Greg Beatles is involved again. Beatles will pop up every now and again. Last year he was there when Arthur had a cold.
He's a business guy, right?
That's what he was pitched as, but maybe I'm wrong. I can't keep track of who does what in that building. Rich McKay is still there. He's on the pregame show on the radio network. He's in the media guide. He's still around. But Beatles, so Terry Fontenot and Raheem and Beatles are all sitting around a table. Raheem's like, I think we need to find a linebacker. Beatles is like, the kid at NC State. You got to go see him, Raheem. What is Beatles doing?
It's gibberish. That's what I'm saying. It's gibberish. There's very little value.
No, Chuck,
Let me put it this way.
No, you're not getting it. Beatles is involved, Chuck. You're not getting it. He's telling you Beatles is involved.
It's the Falcons. It doesn't surprise me. Like I said, an odd collection of people either at the press conference or not. I just saw him do it twice in a week last year.
It's not gibberish because he's saying, here's who's involved. He's telling you, here's who are he mentioned Greg Beatles along with Terry. Greg Beatles? Like, this is part of the problem. Again, maybe I'm missing something, and Greg Beatles has some football acumen. I don't know. Who's the assistant GM? The cat that used to be with the Bears? Is that Ryan Pace? Does that sound right? Isn't he still there?
Yes.
Okay, we have a Pace.
It's the Bears connection with Eddie Goldman, who didn't play bad.
No, Goldman was fine. But, like, Pace was involved, and there's one more that we always hear the name.
Kyle Smith?
Nice job. I think you're right. Kyle Smith, assistant GM. I don't know. Like, is this what we're going to bat with? And around the rest of the league, they're looking at my group of brain trust and like, we're good. Down in Tampa, they're looking up here and they're going, that's what Atlanta's coming with, that group.
I get the contradiction and the built-in funny and all that. I think it was the Minnesota game when he gave his summary of all Kirk had done for the franchise, and that's why he couldn't be benched. I realized at that point, it's like, Raheem's not worth listening to anymore.
But you have to remember, that was a franchise-wide talking point. That was Raheem. This is what you're going to go
guy.
with.
This is, yes, sure. Absolutely.
So you have to have the unified front. It's what I said all season. The problems were going to begin when you started getting cracks, and the cracks came. We played a cut on this show. Jordan Schultz covers the NFL, was like, I talked to players in the locker room who told me Penix is a better quarterback. That was a crack. When Raheem, after the Raider game, was like, we're not sure who the quarterback is. Well, then they made the change. They had to sing the company song about Kirk until that point, until it was so obvious that they couldn't anymore. So I'm not upset at that.
I'm not upset. I'm saying that was the proof. I was like, all right, at this point, he's just making things up to justify bad decisions. And leaving Kirk in against Minnesota was a bad decision.
Chuck, I'm not picking on you. He was told to say it. He wasn't making stuff up. He was told to say it.
Exactly. My point is,
you're saying like he's
it's not
just
worth listening to. Okay, whether he's told to spout gibberish or it comes out of his own mouth, I understood it was a talking point. I got it. Not to pick on you, Matt.
But what I'm telling you is Arthur Smith used to get mad at him speaking his mind a year ago. He wouldn't sing the company song. You can't be mad at both.
No, I wasn't mad at Arthur Smith.
You weren't?
Not for what you just said.
Okay.
It was for insulting everyone.
Chuck, they insult.
Talking down to people as if you didn't understand what you had just seen, for saying you didn't have faith in the team. And I'm like, you punted on 4th and 1, not me.
But Why
are you talking about my faith? That's what I was angry about Arthur for.
But you act like you're new to the media game. They all done this for 50 years. They all talk down to you. And Domino does it. It's one of my biggest. I hate it when you guys do the talk down to me. They all do it. They're trained to do it. They're supposed to be smarter. If they're not, they wouldn't be in the position. Doesn't mean they are smarter, but they're trained to think they are smarter. He is smarter than you. He thinks he is.
Absolutely he is. And all I'm saying is that when Raheem gets up there and speak, I have learned that I'm not going to get anything from it. Okay. Anything I don't already know.
You're right. But
Michael Penix is the better quarterback. Already knew that.
So give me one coach you get something from.
Okay. Sean Payton.
Oh, stop.
Sean Payton, this was the most backward organization I've ever seen. They did everything wrong, and we're going to start doing it better now. What he said about Bo Nix in like week 5 or 6, where Bo was like, oh, hell, I'm in the NFL now. Sean Payton will give you something.
Okay. Well, all right, there's 1 and 2 examples.
And Rex Ryan swears he will if he's the Jets coach.
And by the way, Rex's attitude is part of the reason he got canned. It's safer to take the don't say anything approach. They've all done it. So coaches say nothing. Every Monday press conference sounds the same. That's why I said the funny in it, or the little something you get from when I hear Greg Beatles' name from Raheem Morris.
And the part, here is the fact that Raheem didn't understand that he just contradicted himself. That part's funny.
It's hilarious.
But as far as like it making any impact on me, I already knew that I was going to get nothing from Raheem. I just didn't know the particular nothing.
You got nothing from Dan Quinn? You got nothing from Mike Smith?
Oh, Dan Quinn actually admitted at some point that he had lied. After he asked somebody, it was in sort of not tongue-in-cheek, but he had said, he was asked by, maybe it was Josh Kendall, well, you said this about an injury. And Dan Quinn said, yeah, it's my job to kind of lie about those things.
Okay. But on the whole, Dan Quinn never said a thing. Mm-hmm. Either did Arthur. Arthur would be snarky in how he said it. He never said anything.
You guys ranked as 45th.
He wouldn't talk about injuries. He wouldn't talk about how he really felt. I'll give Raheem credit on one thing, and I'm not a big Raheem fan. He came out after Sunday's game. He did it after the Denver game. He's like, we stunk. He's like, our defense, bad, unacceptable. At least he was honest enough to admit what we know there.
After Sunday, he said it, big step back. Mm-hmm. And hang on, even after the Commanders game, he said, we lost, but there's value, and we're going to take the value. And like he was still pitching the Raheem, I'm super positive, and it's wonderful. After Carolina game, he called it what it was.
Finally had to. Here's one more from Raheem. Now, he was asked about Kirk Cousins' future with the Falcons. You have to count the obviously's in here, and then there was a weirdly timed mask themselves to try to understand where Kirk goes.
Obviously, when you're talking about Kurt, we're just talking about when we ended it last. And he did exactly what he told me he would do. He would be the best backward quarterback in the National Football League, and that's where he's at. So obviously those things will come up in these same discussions. Those things will all mask themselves. Kurt left today, gave me a hug, and said he'll talk to me soon, and we'll make some of those decisions, obviously, with him, obviously because of his contract status and all the things that he's talking about, right? So, obviously, you just never know, and I think that's the part of the process that we'll go through right now with him.
It's nice that Kurt gave him a hug, though, especially considering that Raheem doesn't know his name.
Obviously, when you're talking about Kurt,
he's called him Kurt all year. Maybe I'm just nitpicking now. But a name is a name. I mean, clearly it's Kirk. It's not Kurt. Play it again. It's Kurt, right?
Obviously, when you're talking about Kurt.
I don't know who Kurt is. It's Kirk. Now, there were a lot of obviously's in there. We know how this is going to go. They're going to be forced to release Kirk, not Kurt, because they don't want to pay him the $10 million on March the 15th. But let's play count the obviously's. Do you have a bell prepared for me? This whole cut is about 30 seconds. Here is Raheem with a lot of the obviously's that made it very obvious.
Obviously, when you're talking about Kurt, we're just talking about when we ended it last. And he did exactly what he told me he would do. He would be the best backward quarterback in the National Football League, and that's where he's at. So obviously those things will come up in these same discussions. Those things will all mask themselves. Kurt left today, gave me a hug, and said he'll talk to me soon, and we'll make some of those decisions, obviously, with him, obviously because of his contract status and all the things that he's talking about, right? So, obviously, you just never know, and I think that's the part of the process that we'll go through right now with him.
Got 5 obviously's in there from Raheem.
Oh, God. I think the masked part, it was drama. He mentioned the contract. He mentioned everything going forward. He said, I think they'll mask those things, though, because I got a hug. We'll put those aside, I think is what he was saying. I think.
Are you sure?
Don't know. No, and I don't care.
And I speak Raheem, so this one. But this one still confuses me.
Those things are all mask themselves.
Kurt speaks Raheem, apparently, because he got a hug.
See, I think about this when you take a couple of years of a foreign language, but you get to one section where you're like, I really feel like I have a good handle on it. And then there's something that throws you off your game. And that's where I am right now. I've taken a year of Raheem, and I still don't know what the mask themselves.
Those things are all mask themselves.
The context of it, wouldn't mask themselves be to cover something else up? They mask themselves. I don't know. Point is, they had a hug.
We don't let the drama show at the end. It's just the good part, just the hug.
Oh.
Maybe.
You might be right.
I don't know.
I don't have a good sense
You
for
did this. You drug me into this. I'm trying to
good.
examine Raheem.
Yeah, you have to speak Raheem.
I really would prefer not to.
I learned to speak Quinn. You have to learn to speak Raheem. It's a big part of what you do. Now, again, Terry Fontenot is scheduled to speak to the media Thursday at 11. We'll see if he gets there or not. He's got less than 48 hours. He's in good shape right now. Do you think he looks down at his cell phone just hoping it's not the Flowery Branch headquarters? Or he gets somebody popping in his office, hey, Arthur wants to see you upstairs for a minute. You're like, no, I almost got to 11 on Thursday.
I'm remembering the press conference, actually multiple press conferences now, where Arthur has explained why he was bringing someone back. Was it the Dimitroff one? He got angry eventually. Why do y'all keep asking?
He got angry at steak at one point. So at the presser, he had to address over and over. Not had to. It was good questions by the media for one of the few times where it was like, all right, Mike Smith's back. Or no, Dimitroff's back. Why Mike Smith was let go. And at one point, this is a decade ago, Arthur says, I feel like I've explained this 4 or 5 times.
Okay. He did the same thing with Dan Quinn, didn't he? He explained continuity, and because he brought him back for the final year where he wound up firing after 5 games. Was it 4 or 5 games? Mm-hmm. In that offseason, he explained why there have been multiple times where Arthur is having to go through the Q&A of why a guy's still on the payroll. He's explained that with Rich a couple of times as well, even though he's given explanations that I don't want to say not truthful, but didn't seem to play out that way. I was told Rich is running soccer. It's in a different building.
I don't know if he's running soccer, but they said he was moved to the soccer side, the Atlanta United side, whatever the hell that means.
Because they had space there?
I don't know. Because they picked his desk up and they put it on the pitch. And he was going to wear a kit, and he was going to be...
Like when they put a 4th grade class in a trailer.
Something like that.
He's over on the soccer side now.
He's looking at the table.
So, again...
my soccer lingo.
Yeah, I just... if Arthur has to give another press conference explaining why Terry is back, I think it's an indicator of the fact Terry probably shouldn't be back.
I think you're going to get an Arthur post-mortem at some point. He usually does it. Usually it's the end of the week after the season ends or the following week. So I'm going to guess we're going to get an Arthur Blank something. I'll look forward to that. I almost feel bad for him at this point. He's in his 80s, and he's getting peppered with these questions.
They rescheduled it last year. Remember, they had the Arthur Blank press conference without Arthur Blank?
Yeah, they had Greg Beatles up at the podium.
There you go.
So I told you, it's the times we hear from Beatles. Beatles rears his ugly head every now and again.